what does it mean to be unstained by the world? To be unstained by the world around us. Be perfect? Possibly. Now, back in ancient days, the belief was that the body and the world was a temporary thing that really was quite awful and sinful. And then we should just really long for the day we die, because that's when we escape this awful, awful place. Seems rather depressing, doesn't it? We see the world around us as nothing but badness and awfulness and stain. Doesn't seem to be the very best. Or people will say that stained means that we fall into our desires, right? That we stain ourselves by not being pure enough, by not being perfect enough, that we are stained whenever we wear things inappropriate, go with the wrong people, or anything else. That seems to be a bit harsh too. But, you go online, all you see is things about more and more about modesty, making sure that you are modest and perfect in every way. But I don't think that's what Jesus is talking about here. It doesn't mean to be unstained by the world. It seems to me that the world stains us in a way that causes us to fear quite a bit. Fear not being enough. Fear not having enough. Fear being different. We have a world that tries to tell us that we are not worthy of too much. What does it mean to be unstained by the world? If being stained means we have all this fear and anxiety. Consider for a moment all the youth movements that go around our world, where our young people rise up because they believe they can change the world. They believe that one voice by itself can lead to many more voices being heard. That one voice, one person can go out there and right the wrongs and all the injustices of our world. That one person matters. Now consider for a moment how usually that's treated by all of us lovely adults. Oh, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. You can't possibly do that. Who are you to think you could do all that? Don't you know how bad our world is, all the systemic issues we have going on? Don't you know that one person doesn't really matter all that much? There are millions and billions of people in this world. What makes you think you matter? What makes you think that you're worth too much? Maybe it's because after trying something in our younger days and failing, we can't begin to comprehend that maybe something good can happen. Maybe it's in seeing corruption and everything else happen every single day, we become so jaded that we believe nothing can change. James tells us in today's readings, do not just be hearers of the word. Don't just hear things and let it be the end of your engagement. But go and be doers of the word. Go out and do. Not just hear. What does it look like to be unstained by the world? It looks like hope. It looks like love and mercy. It looks like trusting that God has made us for something bigger than we could possibly imagine. That God didn't just make us just to kind of exist in mediocrity and everything else and just be a nothing. But God created us for something. God created us to be able to change the world. Even if changing the world means even just for one other person. to bring hope and faith to one person. Make that person know that they are loved and cared about. I believe that God calls us to even bigger than one, yes. God can change us and help us to change everything. But realize that every single person matters. So even if we can bring hope and love to one, everything is worth it. But we live in hope. We live in the faith that God will guide us where we need to go, instead of just sitting back in our fear. How many fears can we possibly have? Fear we might fail? Really? How many people in this room have ever failed at anything in your life? You're among good company. How many of you remember riding a bike for the very first time? How many of you rode perfectly the very first time you ever rode that bike? No. What happened? You fell down, right? You fell down, maybe you skinned your knee, but you had to get back up. You got on that bike and try to ride again. I remember as a child, it was very hard for my parents to teach me how to ride a bike. Not because they couldn't or anything like that, because as a child, I was not one to keep on wanting to try. It was quite easy to give up. To fall down once and say, you know what? I'm done for the day. And my poor parents having to stand over me and beg me, just get up. You're not done yet. Get up and try something else. Get up and try again. Don't just give up. What did you do wrong the first time? Learn from that. I think at times God actually blesses us with our failings. God blesses us when we don't quite get things right because it makes us learn. So instead of looking at the failure and being afraid of maybe I'll fail again and being stained by that failure, we can learn from it and say, God, help me do better the next time. God, show me a better way. Help me to keep going. Or maybe we're afraid of rejection in our life. Afraid that we're going to tell someone a wonderful idea we are having, or telling someone about our faith that we have, and saying, maybe, just maybe, they won't like what I have to say. Maybe they'll look at me a bit too differently after this. Make sure I keep my mouth shut and not say a word. How many of us have ever been rejected in our lives? Yeah, pretty much everyone, right? That's how maybe one hand didn't come up. Lucky you. It happens. But God will give us people in our life who love us and accept us for who we are. Who love us and are going to support us and what we have to do. And also, when we are afraid to say who we are, when we are afraid to say what God is doing in our lives, and we hold it into ourselves, that all kind of dies a very slow, quiet death. And these are us not being able to experience the joy that God brings to us. Nor does He give us the opportunity to share that joy with others. Because the worst possible thing is rejection. The best possible thing is we start changing lives right there. Giving hope right there. Or to explain what God has done for us. Fear stains us in so many ways. As though there's a world who tells us it's all about getting more power. And making sure we stay safer and more comfortable by getting more and more and more for ourselves. Now, in our reading today, they say that as doers of the word, what's going to happen is that you're going to go out and do and have this perfect faith by accumulating all this wealth for yourself. Is that what the gospel said? Is that what James had to say? No. No, go and care for the widows and orphans. Take what you have, all these things that make you comfortable, all these things that make you feel wonderful about yourself, and as they are a blessing to you from your God, give them to people who need it even more than you. Help your siblings around you to be lifted up. Do not let anyone just have to suffer and go hungry and homeless just because of a condition that's happened upon them. But instead, be bringers of hope. What does it mean to be unstained? It means to be filled with hope instead of fear. To be filled with the love of God instead of fear of neighbor. Be unstained is being able and willing to change the world. Because we can bring that hope with us. And whenever we fall down and fail, whenever we are rejected, whenever we start to think of ourselves too much, we lift it up once again and guided by the one who made us to go and to do. Our faith is not an intellectual exercise. Our faith is not about thinking the exact right things. And then one day, after all this ends, we have to go on to the next life just because we thought pretty thoughts. We are called to action. We are called to be loving to all. We are called out in our world to go and to do. So the question for all of us is, what are you going to do? Amen.